What's up, guys? Welcome to Good Bad Wrestling No Holds Barred. This is the show where we dig up cringeworthy wrestling from the past and then bury it again. I am your host, John.
I'm Jack Brinks.
Today we are coming to you live via podcast, which you can find wherever they got podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, the works. But we are also now on the YouTubes.
YouTube. You can, is it my side or your side?
Yeah, which side do you point? It's definitely down.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Subscribe bell or whatever the
Yeah,
fuck
so
that thing is.
subscribe to us on the podcast platforms and subscribe to us on the YouTube also, so you got multiple ways of finding us. Today, we, you guys know what we do at this point. We talk about the cringeworthy stuff in wrestling, and we're going to talk about probably the worst idea in wrestling history.
Yeah, I'll second that. It's pretty, it's not only terrible idea, I think it's pretty irresponsible.
Yeah, so today we're talking about the infamous Brawl For All. If you're not familiar, the Brawl For All was a kind of tough man-esque shoot fight tournament that was held in WWF in, I want to say, 98, and they did it on Raw.
Yeah,
So
through a couple months.
it took a while to do.
Spread out.
So what they did was Vince Russo, of course, came up with this idea.
Brainchild.
this idea to do a tough man style tournament, and it was by volunteer, right? So they weren't making anyone do it. They were going to pay them real prize money. And it had, boxing gloves that they would wear. They would do it in rounds. I think it was 3 rounds. It was like on a point system too. So.
And a ref that looked like Richard Grieco from Night at the Roxbury.
So it was like the rules are completely and utterly convoluted. So you've got, I think it's 3 rounds, and it's like 5 points for the most strikes and 5 points for a takedown or 1 point for a takedown or whatever. It's based on points, but mostly it's remember when you played Knockout Kings on PlayStation, and there was a mode that was just called Knockout. You just headhunting the entire time. That's all it was. So that's what this tournament was. They're trying to capitalize on the growing success of UFC at the time, which it really wasn't that big of a deal in 98.
No, that was quite a few years before it really took off.
Well, the biggest stars had been Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn, who were WWF wrestlers at the time and in the locker room. Those two guys were prohibited from taking volunteering to be in the Brawl For All, because they said, well, here's our shoot fight tournament, but you two would fuck up this entire roster, so you can't participate. So you have the likes of Bart Gunn and Hawk and Draws and Bradshaw and
Bob Holly, I think.
Bob Holly and Dr. Death. Steve Williams was like young in the company and was supposed to be a big fucking deal. He was supposed to be the biggest heel they ever had, because he would have been the equivalent of Brock Lesnar now as far as his legitimacy, right? So they were going to do big business with him. Well, somebody pulled out or got hurt, and they replaced that person with Dan Severn. So Dan Severn comes in the first round, wins his fight easily.
Weird.
And then there's conflicting reports that either he pulled out because it was stupid and he didn't want to tarnish his legacy, or they told him, oh, okay, you're good. They pulled him out of it.
Yeah.
Because they were like, wait.
Save some of the talent from getting eaten alive.
So you have these, like, let's be real. If you look at the roster now, you've got guys who are well-rounded athletes, guys with abs, guys who focus on conditioning, guys who are interested in martial arts and do jiu-jitsu and do Muay Thai. You look at the roster in 1998.
No.
You had 300-pound beer-drinking buff fat asses. And
you had a couple, like I think Blackman. Yeah. Steve Blackman was a legit martial artist.
I don't want to. Throughout the course of this podcast, we're gonna shit on the thing as a concept. I don't want it to come across as sounding like any of these men are not tough as fucking nails, because every one of them would use me as a toothpick. So I don't. But as far as being conditioned athletes, no. This is an era where like chin locks and rest holds were common because you had to catch your breath. Nowadays, wrestlers don't have to catch their breath. So you take them and put them in essentially a boxing match which is one of the hardest things a person can do as far as conditioning goes. I don't think Hawk is going to make it very far in a boxing match.
No, you're not doing rest holds.
So you have these garbage fights, right, with these unconditioned, untrained athletes, right? Like Godfather is a legitimate martial arts badass, but he had been professional wrestling for the last 20 years or whatever. So he wasn't
an active.
He wasn't training to do this. It was sprung on them like last minute. So you get a bunch of terrible fights, and then B, before and after these Brawl for All fights is the head shrinkers versus the oddities, right? So it just points out the stark difference between a legitimate fight and a cooperative entertainment pro wrestling match, and making the entire show crap, right? Neither one is entertaining when you put a real fight in there.
Yeah, there's a lot to... There's a lot of issues I have with this, and maybe now is the time to address it.
I would say so, yeah. No, you know what? Hold on to it. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the issues with this on a different episode. I have an issue with. It's cool to see guys like Brock Lesnar, right? UFC, WWE champion, go to be a thing in the UFC, heavyweight champion, come back to WWE. The problem is you have him facing guys like Cain Velasquez and destroying Frank Mir.
Yeah.
And then you put them in a match at WrestleMania where he's going to wrestle Ricochet? No, Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
Or he'll lose in a match to Rey Mysterio. Nothing against Rey Mysterio, but you've seen him beat the shit out of guys like Frank Mir, who are world class at the time, world class top fighters, and now they're losing with a roll up to that. You suspend reality when you watch wrestling. We all know that, and I watch it. We look at it a little differently, coming from having done it,
right?
But to mix the two, I don't know. It's confusing, and I think it takes away. It adds a lot to that wrestling's fake.
You definitely don't want to like, there's blurred lines. I don't have a problem. I don't necessarily agree with you about like, if Rey Mysterio beats Brock Lesnar in a professional wrestling match, that's storytelling. Look at what this little guy did against this UFC champion. We can suspend our disbelief. That's fine. If Brock Lesnar had a fight with Frank Mir in the WWE, and then the next match was a pro wrestling match, that would be a different thing. And that's what Brawl for All is. And it's completely and utterly ridiculous. So not only was it a problem because it pointed out that wrestling was worked, it put a huge spotlight on that. Then you had guys getting injured. And Steve Williams, who was supposed to be a big fucking deal, tears his hamstring in a match and then gets knocked the fuck out by Bart Gunn. So there ends his push and essentially his career, right? How do you push a guy after Bart Gunn knocked him the fuck out? And I don't mean Bart Gunn as in like, oh yeah, like he's not an athlete. He is absolutely an athlete, but the name Bart Gunn didn't mean shit.
It's different than the guy who got walloped in the first round by Bradshaw.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, you're going to put these guys in a legit... Everything I've heard, read, seen about Bradshaw is like, he's stiff as shit.
Yeah,
he doesn't. There's no leeway. It's like this is how this is. It's like that video of the old video of the guy in the hallway. The interviewer's like, wrestling's fake, and he goes up. He goes, oh, wrestling's fake, and he just slaps the shit out of the interview. That's like Bradshaw.
Yeah, he's a tough motherfucker for sure. But once you see somebody get knocked unconscious, that it takes away, it removes an aura. He recovered from this debacle. Godfather recovered from this debacle. Holly recovered from it, but Steve Williams was never a thing. And then the winner of the fucking tournament, Bart Gunn, should have. Okay, so you have this dumb fucking shoot fight in the middle of a fucking wrestling promotion. The guy that comes out of it on top with, like, I don't know, 3 KOs should be poised as being a big deal now, right?
Yeah, that's the pinnacle. It stops there.
You should have, KO written on your gloves, and you should go on to have like this. He should have had Brock Lesnar's career.
Yeah.
In wrestling. He should have been the guy that everybody was fearing. He's got a lethal left hand. The next booking decision should be go to WrestleMania 15, put him in a work shoot wrestling match, have him go over a big heel.
Yeah.
Nope.
That would make sense.
They put him in another boxing match against Butterbean, an actual boxer, an actual like tough man competitor, and a guy who does this for a living, knocking motherfuckers out.
I don't understand the logic. Like, did they just think this went over so well? If you watch some of these fights, the fans, they don't care. They're booing.
Yeah.
They're not. This isn't a thing that took off, and then you stick it. You go, oh, this was a really good idea. Now we should maybe Bart Gunn's really a thing. Let's put him in the ring with Butterbean.
They must have just worked themselves into thinking, since they saw him for the last month knock out the likes of Steve Williams and the Godfather. He must be great at this, obviously, because he knocked out a bunch of fat beer drinking non-boxers. So we should put him in there against Butterbean. I'm going to link the video of the Butterbean and Bart Gunn fight. It's only about a 2.5 minute video.
And most of that's replay and intro. And
man, I will give you the blow by blow here. Bart Gunn comes out, takes 3 steps, gets rocked with a right hand and goes down. Takes his entire 8 count, stands up and to find Butterbean, who puts a right hand on him that I saw his soul leave his body. He got lit the fuck up and hits the ropes on the way down. Couldn't be a more embarrassing loss, couldn't be a more brutal knockout, and couldn't be a more shit thing to do in a professional wrestling company.
That if I'm Bart Gunn, I'm insulted. Like, yeah, you're on WrestleMania, but that's an insult.
It's the lack of respect that hurts the most. I mean, actually, it was that right hand to the face that hurt the most, but the lack of respect, that hurts the second most. And then, Butterbean would go on to nowhere. I mean, he just...
I think he just resumed his career
his crappy boxing
knocking
career.
people out and doing whatever Butterbean did.
Do what Butterbean do. So then Bart Gunn went nowhere, obviously, after this, because how do you push the guy that won the tournament after he's had his head taken clean off on WrestleMania? The whole thing is so fucking stupid, and maybe Vince Russo's crowning achievement. What's the opposite of crowning? Like his toilet bowl.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something.
Toilet bowl achievement.
What's the thing under the toilet when you put it on the
little ring,
the flange?
It's the outhouse achievement. Yeah. Vince Russo is responsible for some of. We owe him a huge debt of gratitude because he's supplied us with so much material for this show already and so much more to come. But as far as just from a smart booking perspective, not even just like a so bad it's good, but this is his worst idea. This is worse than the triple cage. This is worse than the work shoot interview with Hogan that ended up going to court.
Yeah.
This is. So normally when we get to the end of these episodes, we talk about, is it good, bad, or is it disqualified? I think that this has got to be disqualified.
Yep. Yeah, that you got DQ for my vote.
And it absolutely gets a golden Russo.
Yeah.
Since we're in agreement and he came up with it. Man, we should try to get him on the show.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Try to get him to defend some of these stupid fucking things that he's done.
Let's we're being harsh, but he's made a life in wrestling. Oh, yeah. And he's been part of guys like him and Bischoff and Heyman have given us some of the best things in wrestling. For sure. But you can't ignore the
I would say that if you're operating from a creative or booking perspective, if you're operating at 50% of the things that you do land, then you're going to be around forever and ever. it's just a matter of the other 50%. Did it not land, or is it the Brawl for All?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what is that other 50%?
Wrestling is a lot of like we said earlier. It's a lot of throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
Some of it's good. Like at the time, it sounds really good, and then when it's put into motion, not that good. Like, but I don't know where any of this sounded like a good idea. It's like Big Show and Akibono at WrestleMania.
Jesus. No, yeah, like, okay, listen, guys, I have a great idea. You see Hawk over there? Let's have him put on some boxing gloves, and he's gonna fight draws for real, but he's still gonna have the face paint on. And Vince went, sounds awesome. Let's do it. Yeah, this is one of the worst things that they've done, but like we always say, I'm glad it exists because it's really funny to go back and watch it in retrospect. Like I said, I'm gonna link that Butterbean versus Bart Gunn fight. If you do nothing else with your day, you have got to see this knockout. It is unreal.
It's a perfect poop time.
Yeah.
Video. It's 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
All right, guys, stay tuned for the good news, bad news of the week, because future us is going to break that down for you. And also, upcoming this week on Friday, we're going to have another episode that's going to drop where we have done an interview with strongman John Anderson, and he's going to break down his whole wrestling career, his strongman career, his bodybuilding career. He's given us philosophy about weight training. So look for that interview on Friday. We had a great time talking with him.
Yeah, I think you guys will really like that one. If you like it half as much as we did and had as much fun as we did recording it, then
yeah, absolutely. So look for that one on Friday this week. All right, stay tuned for the good news, bad news, and we'll catch you guys later. Peace.